You're listening to another episode of From the Dust with Sarah Decker, a place to explore spiritual experiences and topics. And no, we are never alone. Thanks for being here. This has been a long time coming. We're finally here.
Right? I know, kidding.
I know I get nervous every time. And I don't know if that'll ever go away, but so thank you.
Well, I have to tell you, this is the first time I've been on a podcast. So
yeah, well, when Dave had me on, that was the first time I'd ever been on one. So I just recently had that experience myself, so I get it. Thank you for trusting me with your first time on a podcast. That's very kind of you both. So yeah, so I have a couple pages of questions here just to keep the conversation going, but first of all, let's just have you guys introduce yourselves. What are your names and how are you connected?
Okay, I'll start. I'm Tonya, and I am David's second wife.
And I'm Amber, and I'm his first wife.
Great. Okay. Well, so I am curious. Individually, I'm sure the process of coming to be where you are now in life was a process, and probably something that God took you on that path to like bring you to where you are now in life and your situation. And I'm curious, it would just a brief explanation of kind of that process maybe for you, Amber, and then you want to add your story in after Tonya.
So David and I started looking into the fundamentalist world, almost 20 years ago, probably. I don't know, maybe not that long. I don't know, between 15 and 20 years ago. And it's kind of been a roller coaster ever since, but we just keep getting pulled back to this is our life. This is what we're supposed to be doing. So yeah, it's been an adventure. It's been an emotional adventure sometimes, but in the end, this is always where we're led to be.
I imagine that there was, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but that there were things in particular that have been hard about it, and different struggles that you had to overcome, maybe even just within yourself, regardless of the relationship struggles of just having a different dynamic. But was there anything in particular that you kind of had to overcome and just like welcoming a different lifestyle than a lot of people live?
I think the biggest challenge for me, has been my family. Most of them don't accept it. They don't agree with it. And so I think that's been the biggest challenge for me, is just knowing that this is where I'm supposed to be. And if they disagree with it, then that's their choice. But in the end, I'm still the same person I've always been. I've been led on a different path.
Well, I just want to say that I imagine that's been really rough, and that I'm impressed with your courage and willingness to keep walking a path that's hard because you know it's the right one. So good job. Bravo. So Tonya, how did you, I mean, you recently joined their family. So like, how did that happen? What brought you here?
I'm with, as far as like bringing me, I've always known that this is what I wanted to do with my life ever since I was little. I guess a brief coming out part would be when I told my mom that I was a fundamentalist, and okay, it's not doing anymore. So growing up, when I told my mom that I was going to be a fundamentalist, she's like, that doesn't surprise me. And I was like, why? And she's like, because when you would play Barbies and stuff, instead of like, your friends always saying, you can be the Ken doll and I'll be the mom and you can be the dad, I was always like, why can't there be two moms? Like, why do we have to choose? And so when I told her, she's like, I'm not, super surprised. I entered this lifestyle back in 2008 for the first time I tried it. And it didn't work out, thankfully, because now I'm with David and Amber. But no, I met David and Amber about 2011 or 12. And we talked on and off for about 10 years. And it just wasn't the right timing. We would get real close to me coming and visiting or meeting them in person, and something just would happen and it just wasn't the right time.
So I know that, having listened to David's podcast and the interview that he had, I know that Amber and David had their own experience of having a second wife and then that not working out. And then you also just said that you had a previous experience and that not working out either. So, a lot of people, I would say, they have an experience and then they just want to throw it all out, right? Just no, done, nothing to do with it. And I know Dave said he had like some experience with that for a while, nope, I don't want to do this ever again. But how did you handle that? And how did you keep the faith of like knowing it was still a path that was meant for you in the face of a hardship or things not working out?
I would say for me, David was the one that was always like, we're never doing this again. And I was the one that was like, no, we will. In time, we will. And I think it's just one of those things that once you learn and understand all of the fundamentalists knowledge that there is out there, and you learn about all of this and understand what section 132 is all about, it's hard to turn that off, and it's hard to just put it away and be like, no, I can't do this, because you have that knowledge and it's there and it just doesn't go away.
Okay, definitely, I could see that.
For me, it was so the relationship I had previously was not one in faith. It was very much a worldly relationship. And so I always felt led to this lifestyle. I've always felt like this was what I was supposed to do. And they say you have a calling, and I always felt like, looking back now, it's like, okay, that was my calling. Like, but when I always knew that it was, and for a long time I did. After that relationship ended, I was like, I'm not doing this again. Like, I can't, just because of how it ended. It was not pretty. And so I told myself I wasn't doing it again. And then I just prayed a lot, and and that's when I kind of just one night, I remember I was laying in bed and I was like, nope, I'm doing this. Like, I need to do the footwork. Like, I didn't want a worldly relationship. I didn't want a relationship that was based in the world. I knew I wanted something bigger. I didn't know what it looked like, yet, but I knew I wanted something bigger, and I knew there was something, a bigger picture out there for me. I posted something on my Facebook the other day of Jesus holding a giant teddy bear and a little girl holding this little itty bitty, beaten up teddy bear, and she's like, "But I love it." And Jesus is there with this huge teddy bear behind his back, and he is like, "But I have so much more for you." And it wasn't until that night that I realized that Heavenly Father had something so much bigger for me in store. And when I started talking, I guess when I started talking to David, that's when he introduced Adam God to me, and he introduced a lot of doctrine to me. And so that to me was like my 132, it was my, when I got introduced to Adam God, because I grew up in a Lutheran home. And so when I got introduced to Adam God and just all this stuff, it was like, okay, this all makes so much sense. And then 132, I was introduced, and I was like, you know what? This is where I've been going my whole life. Like, this is what I was cut out for.
That's so interesting. It's cool to think that someone would just have that knowing. And I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I really believe that we make a plan for our life before we come here. And so, I mean, we don't always know it, right? But I think some of us probably are blessed with that inner knowing. And I think that's really cool that you had um, that inner knowing to kind of help you and get you where you needed to be in life,
Yeah. Growing up in 2005, when I was baptized into the mainstream church, I watched Saturday's Warrior. And it's not the new copy, it's the very old, like 80s copy. But it's funny because one of the songs is Circle of Love, and it's what they're beyond the veil still. And it's a couple, and they're talking about finding each other when, after they come on this side of the veil, and finding each other and knowing each other. And, it's funny because I saw that in 2005, and I never felt like I knew the person. Like I said, the relationships that I had been in were all very worldly. And it's funny because when I met Amber and David, like Amber and I would talk, and it was like we had known each other forever. And same with David, we would talk for hours, and it was like we had known, and this was when we first started talking. It was like we had always just known each other. And I remember laying in I was at my mom's house, and that movie came on, and I was like, I get it. I get it.
So I guess that kind of answers the question, do you believe that you were meant to be a family, here on this side, and that you found your home?
Definitely.
Yeah, we've both had our as I guess you would call it, a witness. That wasn't my witness. But we've both had a witness as to that.
So I guess that brings me to another question, is like, how did I'm just playing out in my mind. I can't imagine that conversation, like, because at some point someone received a witness that they were supposed to be part of that Tonya was supposed to be part of the family, or whatever. And it's like, how do we broach this one? Like, how does this conversation happen? And I know that's probably a curiosity a lot of people are going to have. And how did you guys go about that? So
For me, I mean, from the first time when like Tonya said that we talked, I think Tonya and I kind of connected. And even throughout the years, it was always, where's Tonya, what she's doing. And we would connect every few years, talk for a while. And like she said, then something just never worked out quite right. And then when Tonya reached out to David because she had heard his podcast, and she had just went through the temple, and she had messaged him and told him that she had went through the temple and that, and and then she had messaged about his podcast, and he had came into me and he's like, Tonya messaged me, and I don't know, it's been a few years since we had talked or anything, and I just kind of looked at him and I was like, so? And he's like, but I think she like wants to talk. And I'm like, okay, then talk to her. And he's like, but no, I think she wants to like talk. And I was like, okay, God has brought her back into our life again for a reason, and you need to find out what it is. And I'm pretty sure I already know what it is, but you need to figure this out. And he was like, okay. But and I don't know, I think after they started talking again, it was only a few weeks before he realized that, yeah, this is what we were supposed to do, and that. But I mean, from the second he told me that she had reached out, I was like, okay, talk to her. I'm like, I like her, that it's gonna fit, and just talk to her.
That's great. You explaining that, it just shows a level of communication and trust you guys have within your marriage, and I think that's great. So bravo. Some questions I'm going to ask are more just because I think people are curious about these things, and it might help people have an understanding, because I think a lot of times, I know that when I see people having conversations or hear conversations about plural marriage or anything like that, that by its many names is what I mean by that, because a lot of people use different terminology there. But I think a lot of people's fear is fear of the little details, that they don't know how things are going to go. And that's the scariest part. And so, like, the fear of a husband talking to someone else. And I think what you just said was just so lovely, because it's like, well, communicate, and but like the level of trust there too. And so, do you guys have, I guess, Amber, do you have a specific expectation that you communicated with Dave before Tonya even reached out, about like how to go about, I don't know, dating or talking to someone to see if they're even the right person or something to bring in the family?
I don't know that we had anything really particular set out. David would just always come talk to me, before he ever would talk to anybody, and because of things that's happened in the past, I always made him, be like, you talk to the person and make sure that, it's something that's going to be even a potential anything before I would even start talking to anybody. But I don't know. He never really, I guess, dated or courted anybody. And everything was just so, I don't know, natural with Tonya, because like I said, I had known for years that she was supposed to be in our family. It was just the matter of when and how. And so, I mean, he would just like set up, times in the evening that he would call her and talk to her before she got here, and that. And we've just since then just made sure that we each get our time with him. And then we also make sure that her and I, make sure that our relationship is good, because I think that's really important too, that the wives get along or it doesn't work, especially when you live in the same house.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So is there anything you wanted to add to that, Tonya?
I think when I started courting David, and even before we actually like started officially courting, like when we were just talking to like get to know each other, um, I really like I wanted to get to know David and stuff. Like it was super important to me, but I've always wanted the family. It wasn't just David that I wanted. And so it was always super important to me that my sister wife, that I have a good relationship and communication and trust and all that stuff with her as well, because um we do a lot in the house. We have to make sure that the house is, being run when David's at work and stuff. And so I think it's super important that sister wives have a good line of communication and trust and friendship. I think that's a huge thing. I knew just a side note, when I met David, I came out here to Utah for the first time, and I had met David, and I remember thinking all the way of getting back to the house, I was like, I really hope Amber likes me. I really hope Amber likes me. Like almost all the way back, I was like, I've been talking to this family for so long. I love both of them so much. I was like, just please let her like me.
I think that's great because a lot of people I think focus so much on the husband part that they forget the sister part, and that there
Right.
is joy and love that's shared there as well. And it's also another relationship that can be a beautiful thing and be a great joy and bring a lot of comfort and help into your life. I know with my
Definitely.
mom here, I know I just am comparing it to my mom being here, like I spent a lot of years being a mom to a bunch of kids with a husband that worked all the time, so it was just me most of the time. And so I know since my mom moved out here, how nice it's been just to have another hand around the house that gets what all that goes into being a mom, and understands the constant movement and the all the many things that need to happen, and that there's no one really to watch out for each other. Because I know for me it was like, as a mom, I just felt like I was watching out for everybody else all the time, and there was no one watching out for me. And when my mom moved in, I really saw the beauty of that. Like, there was another woman in the house that was there to watch out for the other woman of the house, and cared about me to make sure I was getting taken care of too. And anyways, and so that's what I was just thinking, like with a sister wife, that could just be like that, and a beautiful relationship.
Yeah, that's something definitely that I think Amber and I do pretty well, is to make sure that each of us are being taken care of and that we have what we need, like emotionally and everything. Like we're just, we really have over the last year, I feel like we've gotten even closer if possible. Like
Right.
we really have, like since I moved out here and everything over the last year, it's been we've gone through our ups and downs, just with, moving out here and just um having another person out here with their past and stuff and working through all that. But I really do feel like you were saying, having another woman to talk to that you're close to and that you care about. It's not just any woman, it's someone that you are close to and that you care about.
That's great. And I want you to be able to share those beautiful parts and those good parts, because um it's important to see the beauty there too. Because I don't think people really understand why anyone would choose this life. And because I know I've heard that. I've heard some people say that. So but the fact is that there's many women who choose it. And
Yeah.
so I think it's important to talk about the good too, and the beautiful parts of sisterhood in that way. So I'm curious if you'd be willing to share what your wedding day looked like, and what Tonya, and then like what that looked like for you too, Amber, and if you were there, like, is it something that you're all a part of? How does that look, if you're willing to paint that picture for us?
So I'm not sure how much to share. So we didn't have a typical wedding. Actually we were sealed down in Tonopah at the temple, or yeah, the temple of, help me out here,
Yeah, at the branch.
at the branch.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
is it just called the branch? The righteous, what is it called?
The
Yeah.
righteous brand, I can't remember the name, I'm sorry. That sounds awful.
Come
but
on.
It's a big long name like this, and we just call it the branch.
yeah,
Okay, that's a branch out of Tonopah, because I was
got it.
just speaking to someone else who also is the branch, but it's out of somewhere else. So
Yeah.
okay.
Peterson group
The-
too.
yeah,
is
the
what they're
Peterson.
known as too.
Okay, so
yeah.
commonly known as the Peterson group. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were sealed in a temple there. And so I guess I'm still curious, what does that look like? Is it just you and him across the altar from each other? Is it, all like, I guess, so sorry, what I'm envisioning is, when a couple is sealed and then they may like seal a child to them, where they're all there. So were you all there on the altar, or was it just two?
Yes, we were all there, and in most of the branches, I guess, of fundamentalism, if you're, I guess, living it correctly, the first wife has to give her permission for it to happen. So that's kind of the biggest thing, I guess. And so yeah, during the sealing, it's him and Tonya being sealed together, but then also the three of us being sealed together.
Okay. Okay. Well, that is what I was curious about. So that brings me a question. I just thought of this question, but it brings me to a different question. Is to you, what is the law of Sarah, if you're familiar with that term? And how do you understand it?
Most of the time it's the first person, I guess the title of being Sarah, and just kind of being the, I guess, head wife over the family and making sure that everything is being, ran correctly as far as the household goes. And I mean, for me, it's also making sure that, David is nurturing his relationship with Tonya, just making sure that things go the way they're supposed to. And, I've seen some people take it a little too far and be too overbearing within the family. But I don't know, for me, I guess anytime I feel like there's something that needs to be addressed or said or anything like that, I always go to Tonya and be like, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now, and making sure that she feels the same way. And the majority of the time, we've always had the same feelings, and she's usually like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you finally said this because I've been thinking about it or something. But yeah, I guess, I don't know, to me, just being there, making sure that everything is being ran and nurtured correctly, and
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to ask, because when I was first told about the law of Sarah, it was depicted to me as the right of someone to marry someone else, even if their current spouse didn't agree, because they knew God wanted it, so that they had the right to go behind their back. And that seemed off to me. And I've heard a couple different versions of what the law of Sarah truly is. And so that's why I asked, because I think that that's a phrase that a lot of people have different understandings and some different background with out there, with a lot of different groups and a lot of different people talking about these things that I don't know if we really understand, and then people start sharing their beliefs as fact, and I think it can really cause a lot of harm.
I'm sure there's a lot more to it. I know as being the Sarah of the family, um, from what I've been told, you're the one that, gives the permission for another wife to come in and, and that, and I know, I don't know for me, if there was ever anybody else, I don't think that it should be solely my decision. It will be something that I, talk to Tonya about and make sure that she's good with everything and that. But, some people, like I said, do take it to the extreme of, what I say goes. And that's how the family is run. And I know there's a lot of times people will resent that, first wife or the Sarah of the family because, they will take, to me, too much control over the family, where I think, it should be something more that everybody discusses and talks about, and it should be a united decision on things.
Well, I appreciate you sharing, and I think that's seems like a pretty healthy attitude to have about it all. So not that I'm your judge, because I'm not, but I think that's lovely. um so so you were able to get married in a temple, which is really cool. Not everyone gets that opportunity. I mean, obviously the mainstream LDS church stopped marrying plural families, a couple generations ago. So I guess, is there hope though for people who maybe don't have a temple? What can they do? Because I'm sure there's people who maybe feel called to something but can't travel all the way to a temple that they do know about, or they just don't even know about a temple because they haven't stumbled across the right group or whatever, but they know they're called to something. So I guess, do you have any advice for anyone who may be struggling with that, with a similar question, like how do we move forward with this without a temple?
You can still get sealed and that even without a temple, as long as you have the right priesthood authority. There's lots of people out there within the fundamentalist community that, is willing to help set up and perform, sealings and different types of priesthood advancements, or, things, blessings, all that kind of stuff. And that, so, but yeah, as long as you have, a priesthood holder with the correct priesthood authority, you can do it anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a temple. It can be in your home. You can, go out in the middle of the forest and find a nice quiet spot or something, or whatever you want to do, as long as you have that priesthood authority line there.
Thank you. I hope that'll bring some peace to someone out there. So before you chose to kind of come out of the box of mainstream religion, because it sounds like, I don't remember, Amber, if you said that you guys were a member of the LDS church, the mainstream LDS church prior.
Oh yeah.
And then Tonya,
Yes.
you said you had joined it. You had joined the mainstream LDS church. So
Yes.
Tonya, you were so outspoken on Facebook, and I'm so impressed with your courage on there. I always just, I think it's great though, because like I said, so many people see such a negative depiction of plural marriage, that I just think it's so great that you're so open and positive. So good for you, because I think that a lot of people will find called to I don't think everyone will be called to plural marriage in this life, but I do think that there will be lots who are and may feel called to it and may feel really afraid because they feel like they're the only ones out there, and may feel like, how could a happy marriage and plural marriage be possible if it's so hard to even just find a normal marriage and be happy, you know? And so I think you could definitely be touching people and softening hearts towards this way of life and whether or not they live it. And I just think that's a great thing that you're doing.
Yeah, it kind of started on my private page because, joining the family and stuff, I'm so happy here. Like, I'm so happy with the choices I've made and where Heavenly Father's led me. That I didn't want to hide it, and I do have friends and I do have family that aren't necessarily supportive of it. And I'm like, this is my family. Like, this is where I should have always been. And I didn't want to hide that, and now I've looked at it and I'm like, it's exactly what you said. Like, there are people out there that are not as comfortable or afraid to post things even on their private page. And I'm hoping that even though it's my private page and it's my family and stuff, that my friend or a friend of a friend might be like, really struggling with it, and that friend could be like, hey, I know someone that you might want to talk to, like, they're, a friend of a friend, but she's a good person or whatever, and you can go talk to her. So I'm hoping that, word of mouth, I'm hoping that people will see that I see the positive, see the positive that I share in our trips and our, think little things into our life that we do, that people can see that, and maybe it can help someone else down the road that might be struggling that I may not ever know.
Well, I think we tend to struggle with feeling like we're not impacting enough people, or it's supposed to be this huge audience when it doesn't have to be, and it's for us to have a ripple effect where we're influencing far more people than we realize. And I think just the effort of putting light into the world is affecting way more people than we realize. And so I think there was one thing I heard a year or so ago was, so don't ever feel bad about putting light into the world, because you will always help the world. Like, it won't ever hurt anyone, right? So you'll always help the world by letting out light and doing good and being kind and stuff. So don't ever stop. It all benefits the whole world. So just keep on shining. And I just thought that was a sweet reminder that all of our efforts are worthwhile, no matter how small we feel like our audience may be. So I do have a question. Well, I've got a bunch more questions, but
that's okay.
I was going to say that, what do you feel like some of the biggest blessings have been to your life by embracing plural marriage specifically?
I'll let you start.
I would have to say, I mean, not only my friendship with Tonya has grown and that, but there's, there's tons of people out there that that we've gotten to know and become friends with, and have become, very close friends with us, and that because of this journey that we've taken. And the friendships and that, not everybody in the fundamentalist world are polygamous, like you said. You know, they all believe in the principle, but, you know, for some reason or another, you know, not everybody does live it. And, you know, like you said, not everybody is called to live it. It is definitely a calling that um I think that you have to have and that, but yeah, I think just the friendships and that with not only, like I said, within the relationship with me and Tonya, but with, you know, everybody that we've came in contact with since, you know, really going down this path.
Yeah. Mine
Do you
sounds
find
cheesy.
that? Well, I was gonna ask Amber real quick, do you find that those, because those friends are um I don't know how to say this, like, because they're kind of out of the box or living a way that maybe a lot of other people would shun them for, do you find that they're like truer friends? Because I feel like, yeah, we have our friends we go to church with and we see them, and but like how deep of friendships are they really? And sometimes I find that like really true friendships are forged through like hardship, and I could see how you have a stronger connection to people who have gone through a similar hardship and are in a similar place. And so do you find that they're better, like they're truer friendships?
I do. Yeah. I feel like the bond there is definitely stronger. And that, and you know, we have a group of friends that we, you know, do a lot of things with and that, and we look at them as our brothers and sisters. I mean, they are truly part of our family, and you know, we love them just as much as we do anybody in our, you know, our own family. And um but yeah, definitely I think the bonds are stronger. um you can definitely get into, I don't know, better conversations when you have close friends like that, because you know they have a same mindset as you do. And although, you know, a lot of the people that we've came in contact with, you know, there are a lot of different views as far as fundamentalism go, and you might not always agree 100% with somebody, but for the most part, your foundation is the same. Um, and that, and so I think it just, yeah, it does, it bonds those friendships even more.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Okay, Tonya, what were you gonna say?
But mine's kind of cheesy. Um, I think that some of the biggest blessings, I mean, yes, we have definitely met a lot more people, and um like Amber was saying, they're like brothers and sisters to us. They really are. And I do feel so blessed to know them and to have them in our lives, because they truly do like enrich my life in our lives. You know, every morning I send, it's not for everybody. I don't send it out to everybody, but a lot of people I send out a morning message to. I try to do it every day. And um it's kind of like that, you know, a lot of people will kind of, some people will just ignore the messages, and other people, like, it'll just start a conversation. But like there's a few people that I have met through coming to Utah, through the branch or the Pearson group, or through Missouri, or I mean a lot of different places, that um I just, it kind of makes me feel connected to them, even though like there's quite a few of them that are not in Utah that I send it to. And a lot of them are actually people that we've met after we got sealed and stuff, that it just kind of keeps me feeling connected to them and close to them, you know. And but I think this is the cheesy part. I think the biggest blessing that I have gotten is David and Amber have been the biggest blessing in my life. For so many different reasons. Same and different. They really truly have been a huge blessing to me, but also bringing me into their family of their kids and adopting, and so to speak, coming in their family and kind of taking on, you know, not them, but like, they've got 6 kids. And so coming into the family, being able to say, hey, I know they're more adults now, but, I've got kids now, and I've got 3 grandkids, and that the family that I have come into has been the biggest blessing of my life.
Thank you for sharing that. I don't think it's cheesy. I think it's
It's honest. It really is
it's honest. And I think we all want connection and to have family. And so that's a beautiful thing. I know that sometimes we go through these I don't know, cycles in life where it's like the people that are family aren't really acting like it. And you go through the mourning of the loss of, like, the people that you love. And then you bring people in as family who are not blood, but who are just as dear to you and become your family as you are friends and as you come together. And so really we all just want that connection. And for a long time when I moved here, I was really worried about moving so far away from my family, my siblings and stuff. And he just kept telling me, Sarah, we're all related. We're all family. Like, you have brothers and sisters here and you can create a family here too. And so don't mourn too much, like, don't let yourself get too sad about this, because you're where you're supposed to be and family can be created. And so don't be afraid of creating family here and loving people, and that's totally okay. I so I think that's really lovely, and I appreciate you sharing. I know I would be like totally awkward probably saying something like that just in front of people, and but it's also probably really nice to hear and be able to say. So thank you for sharing. So I can feel your love for um the rest of the family, and your claim on the kids. I think that's so sweet. And have you felt received, like how is that coming in with the kids and stuff? Has that gone?
Wow, that's a loaded question. With the 4 kids at home, I really feel like I've gotten close to each of them and that I have a certain kind of friendship with them. One of their daughters just moved, and so now it's just 3 of them home, and I've taken the stance of I'm not a parent. They have wonderful parents that have raised them amazingly. And I don't want to infringe on that or to change any of that or anything. If anything, I want to be their friend and someone that they can talk to or, feel comfortable with. We have one of the older boys is learning to drive. Well, he's doing pretty good, but he's learning to drive. He's got his permit, and just the fact that he's willing to go out with me, and let me help him, get the hang of driving and stuff. Like, he feels comfortable with me. And we've shared a couple moments where that have been pretty touching to me that I don't think I'll ever forget. The 2 older kids, I don't have as close of a relationship with them as I would like. However, they have families of their own and they don't live near us. You know, they're not in the house. And so I haven't had that opportunity to really get to know them. I'm always open to getting to know them and showing them how much I love, you know, David and how much I care about Amber and how much I want to be family. I'm always open to that for all of the kids and the grandkids. It's just in Heavenly Father's time.
Yeah, yeah. And I just thought I would ask because I thought, you know, there's always so many different dynamics within any of these different plural families. And so I'm always curious about the kids. Like how does that work? And if I mean I can understand maybe if a family's just kind of always had another wife around, but like if it's been mostly one mom and then moving to that two, I feel like it's probably the biggest transition going from one to two as opposed to like two to three or something, where they're already maybe familiar with, oh, I've got two moms or something, you know. But when it's just the one and moving up to two, is I would see that. I just think about my own kids and try to think about it that way. Like, how would this go? You know, how do you talk to the kids? How do you explain this to them and help them to um, be comfortable in their home with things changing and because as parents, you know, like we go through these spiritual growth cycles as well. Like we're growing and we're learning and the kids kind of are just along for the ride, but I know like for myself, I still want them to feel heard and respected along those changes, you know, and feel safe and comfortable. And so I know that that's probably something that other people are curious about as well. And like how does one go about like talking to their kids about it, you know, and letting them know that these changes are happening. And because yeah, I think that would be hard for as a parent and to know how to navigate.
So all of our children, I mean, we started teaching them about like Adam God and a lot of the fundamentalist views and stances on things, you know, back 15, 20 years ago when we first started, you know, looking into this. We always, you know, family home evening or, you know, if we didn't go to church or whatever, you know, we taught these things to our kids at home. And so they have all known that this is, you know, what we believe in and that, but you know, we've always taught our children to, you know, think for themselves and get your own testimony on things and that and you know, I don't think it'll ever be anything that any of my children will ever, you know, join or anything. My younger kids are definitely more, I guess, okay with everything. And that just because they have been here at the house and they have seen how we, you know, interact and communicate with each other and that. And I think for my older two kids, it's been really hard. I think more so because they seen how our first go around ended. I think they more remember how it ended and not some of the things that went on during that time. And so I think they're just more worried that I'm going to get hurt again, that it's going to be this big, huge blow up and that. And so I think they have more of a harder time just because they only remember, I think, the bad times, the bad things about how everything ended and where they're not, you know, close to us and around us and that they don't see the everyday interactions and, other things that go on that, makes our family go now. And that, so, I mean, I definitely think it's easier when they're younger because, you can teach them these things and that, and then they can grow to get their own testimony. But when they're older, I think most of them are so set in their ways that they don't want to, think that there's other ways out there. And there's so much bad publicity with being polygamous and plural marriage and everything that, I think the people just see the bad in it, and they don't see the good in it because they only see what is being televised or whatever, and that, and they just see that everything just always falls apart, and that's not always how it is.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that kind of, with talking about television and media and the general public, I guess, that comes to a question of what is the difference between plural marriage to you and the kind of more cultural like phenomenon going on with like polyamory that's kind of popular in the media a bit right now as well.
I think the biggest thing for us and the not just our family, but the people that we associate with is it's faith-based. And from what I've seen and that, you have to have a solid foundation in that faith. And if it's not faith-based, the majority of the time it is going to blow up. It's not going to go the way it's supposed to because that's not, you're not putting your family in God's hands. And to me, I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, I think honestly with our family, and this is something that I looked for my entire life. Of course David's the head of the house, but even more so Heavenly Father is. We really keep Heavenly Father on speed dial per se. Just because, if Amber and I, or if either of us needs something, we can come to David and he'll pray about it. He'll go straight to Heavenly Father and be like, okay, let's get down to this, and so I think having Heavenly Father as kind of not just our foundation, but also the person that we go to for everything. I mean, all the advice that we need, whether it be individual relationships or as a family, we like I said, we keep Heavenly Father on speed dial. We really do, and I really feel like one of the biggest difference between like our family and a lot of, not all families, but a lot of families out there today, they lose track of that. They say, okay, the husband's the head of the house, which is great, but then they forget Heavenly Father, and they forget who really started that family, who really called you to that calling. And I think it's amazing the strength and the relationship David has with Heavenly Father, because I mean, really, he's really taken, I don't think, and I hope this comes across the way I want it to, but he's really taken our family so